Law number 3. Conceal your intentions. Judgment. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. Part 1. Use decoyed objects of desire and red herrings to throw people off the scent. Transgression of the law. Over several weeks, Nino de Lenclos, the most infamous courtesan of 17th century France, listened patiently as the Marquis de Sévigné shared his struggles in pursuing a beautiful but difficult young countess. Nino was 62 at the time and very well experienced in matters of love, while Marquis was a handsome 22-year-old but hopelessly inexperienced in romance. At first, Nino found it amusing to hear about his mistakes, but eventually she had had enough. Unable to tolerate his inaptitude, especially in seducing a woman, she decided to take him under her wing. Firstly, she made him understand that this was like a war and the beautiful countess was a citadel to which he had to lay siege as carefully as any general. Every step had to be planned and executed with great attention to detail. Instructing the Marquis to start over, Nino told him to approach the countess this time with some distance and a relaxed attitude. The next time they were alone, she advised him to confide in her like a friend, not a lover, to throw her off the scent. The countess should no longer take his interest for granted. Perhaps he was only interested in friendship. Nino then planned ahead. Once the countess was confused, it would be time to make her jealous. At the next big party in Paris, the Marquis would arrive with a beautiful young woman at his side who would also bring along her stunning friends. Wherever the Countess saw the Marquis, he would be surrounded by attractive women. This would not only make the Countess feel jealous, but it would also show her that he was desired by others also. Nino explained patiently that a woman interested in a man wants to see other women interested in him too. Not only does that give him instant value, it makes it all the more satisfying to snatch him from their clutches. Once the Countess felt jealous but intrigued, it would be finally the time to charm her. Following Nino's instructions, the Marquis would skip events where the Countess expected to see him. Then, suddenly, he would appear at salons he had never visited before, but that she often attended. She would find it hard to predict his moves, pushing her into a state of emotional confusion which is necessary for successful seduction. These plans took several weeks to execute. Nino kept track of the Marquis' progress through her network of spies. She heard how the Countess began to laugh more at his jokes now and listened more closely to his stories. She learned that the Countess was asking about him and often looked up at him during social events. Nino felt confident that the young woman was falling under his spell. It was only a matter of weeks now, maybe a month or two, before the citadel would fall. However, a few days later, the Marquis was at the Countess' home. They were alone. This time, he acted on impulse rather than following Nino's advice. He took the Countess's hands and told her that he was absolutely in love with her. The young woman looked confused and gave a reaction he didn't expect. She became polite and excused herself, avoiding his gaze for the rest of the evening. When he visited next, he was told that she was not at home. When she finally let him in again, they both felt awkward and uncomfortable. The spell was broken. Interpretation. Nino de Lenclos understood everything about the art of love. The greatest writers, thinkers and politicians of her times, men like La Rochefoucauld, Molière and Richelieu, had been her lovers. For her, seduction was a skillful game to be practiced. Nino recognized that men and women are quite different, but when it comes to seduction, they share a commonality. Deep down, both often sense when they are being seduced, yet they give in because they enjoy the experience of being led. There's a pleasure in surrendering, allowing another person to guide you into an unknown territory. However, everything in seduction relies on suggestion. You cannot state your intentions outright or reveal them clearly in words. You need to scramble your signals, show interest in someone else, then hint at interest in your target, then again act indifferent, repeating this cycle. Such tactics not only confuse, but they also excite. From the Countess's perspective, after a few of the Marquis' moves, she sensed he was playing a game with her. but it thrilled her. She didn't know where he was leading her, and that only added to her delight. His actions intrigued her, each one leaving her eager for the next. She even relished her jealousy and confusion, as sometimes any feeling is better than the dullness of security. While the Marquis might have ulterior motives, most men do, she was willing to wait and see. If he made her wait long enough, his true intentions also might not have even mattered. However, the moment Marquis spoke the word love, everything changed. It was no longer a playful game, but an unrefined display of passion. His true intention was clear now. He was seducing her. This revelation cast all his previous actions in a new light. What had once seemed charming now appeared manipulative and ugly. The Countess felt embarrassed and used, and a door closed that day that never opened again. Observance of the law. In 1850, Otto von Bismarck, a 35-year-old deputy in the Prussian parliament, faced a key moment in his career. The main issues of the time were the unification of the many states, including Prussia, into one Germany, and a possible war against Austria, the strongest neighbor to the south. Austria then wanted to keep the German states divided and even threatened to intervene if they tried to unite. Prince William, next in line to be Prussia's king, supported going to war against Austria, and the parliament rallied behind this idea, ready to support any troop mobilization. The only ones against the war were the current king Frederick William IV and his ministers, who preferred to appease the powerful Austrians rather than going war with them. Bismarck had always been a loyal supporter of Prussian strength and dreamed of German unification through war against Austria, wanting to humiliate a country that had kept Germany divided for so long. A former soldier, he viewed warfare as a glorious act. This, after all, was the man who years later would say, "The great questions of the time will be decided not by speeches and resolutions, but by iron and blood." However, during a time of strong support for war, Bismarck gave a surprising speech in parliament that astonished everyone present. "Woe unto the statesman," he said, "who makes war without a reason that will still be valid when the war is over. After the war, you will all look differently at these questions. Will you then have the courage to turn to the peasant contemplating the ashes of his farm, to the man who has been crippled, to the father who has lost his children?" Bismarck not only talked about the madness of the war, but also praised Austria and defended its actions, going against everything he had stood for. The consequences were immediate. Bismarck's opposition confused other deputies, and several changed their votes. Eventually, the king and his ministers won out, and the war was avoided. A few weeks after Bismarck's famous speech, the king, grateful that he had spoken for peace that day, made him a cabinet minister. A few years later, however, he became the Prussian premier also. In this role, he eventually led his country and a peace-loving king into a war against Austria, defeating the former empire and establishing a strong German state with Prussia at its head. Interpretation. In 1850, Bismarck made several strategic calculations regarding the political landscape. He recognized that the Prussian military was unprepared for war and lagged behind other European forces. He feared that if Austria were to win a conflict, it would have dire consequences for Prussia's future. Additionally, Bismarck understood that if he supported a losing war, his career would suffer significantly. While the king and conservative ministers favored peace, Bismarck sought to consolidate power. He chose to mislead the public by advocating for a cause he personally opposed, making statements he would have dismissed as absurd. His calculated deception fooled an entire nation. Following his speech, the king appointed him as a minister, a position from which he rapidly ascended to prime minister. This role allowed him to strengthen Prussia's military and fulfill his true ambitions to undermine Austria and unify Germany under Prussian leadership. Keys to power. Most people are like open books. They say what they feel, blurt out their opinions at every opportunity, and constantly reveal their plans and intentions. They do this for several reasons. First, it is easy and natural to always want to talk about one's feelings and plans for the future. It takes effort to control your tongue and monitor what you reveal. Second, many believe that by being honest and open, they are winning people's hearts and showing their good nature. They are, however, greatly deluded. Honesty can actually be a blunt instrument which bloodies more than it cuts. Your honesty is likely to offend people. It is much more than prudent to tailor your words, telling people what they want to hear rather than the coarse and ugly truth of what you feel or you think. More important, by being unabashedly open, you make yourself so much predictable and familiar that it is almost impossible to respect or fear you, and power will not accrue to a person who cannot inspire such emotions. The law third states that if you yearn for power, are dealing with adversaries, or seek to win someone's favor, there are moments when setting honesty aside and concealing your intentions becomes absolute necessity. Master the art and you will always have the upper hand. Another good trick mentioned in this law is to pretend to support an idea that you actually oppose, like what Bismarck did in his speech. Most people will be confused and think you have changed your mind, as it is rare to casually play with such strong emotions. The same applies for any decoyed object of desire. Seem to want something in which you are actually not at all interested, and your enemies will be thrown off the scent, making all kinds of errors in their calculations. During the War of the Spanish Succession in 1711, the Duke of Marlborough, head of the English army, wanted to destroy a key French fort because it protected a vital thoroughfare into France. Yet he knew that if he destroyed it, the French would realize what he wanted, to advance down that road. Instead, then, he merely captured the fort and garrisoned it with some of his troops, making it appear as if he wanted it for some purpose of his own. The French attacked the fort and the Duke let them recapture it. Once they had it back, though, they destroyed it, figuring that the Duke had wanted it for some important reason. Now that the fort was gone, the road was unprotected and Marlborough could easily march into France. While mastering the art of concealing your intentions can be powerful, it is crucial to understand when and where to apply this law. Take for instance a team setting. In a collaborative environment where trust and unity are essential for success, withholding your complete vision can be counterproductive. When you are working with others towards a shared goal, transparency and open communication foster trust, synergy and efficiency. Your team members need to understand the bigger picture, the overall strategy and how they fit into the plan. Being too secretive could undermine the trust and slow down progress and is very counterproductive. In such cases, openly sharing your plan empowers the team to align their efforts, share valuable insights and contribute effectively. It helps avoid confusion or misdirection that could otherwise arise from a lack of clarity. However, just like all the laws in this book, the key is in deciding when and how to use them. This law, like all others from the book, is not a one-size-fits-all rule. It is meant to be applied wisely and selectively. In certain scenarios, concealing your intentions may protect you from difficult situations, protect your ideas, or give you a strategic advantage, especially when dealing with opponents or rivals. But in other instances, such as within trusted relations or teams or partnerships, transparency and honesty can be much more powerful approach. Ultimately, the real mastery lies in knowing when to conceal and when to reveal.